My name is Emma Larson, and in my past life, I loved James Carter with every fiber of my being. For 15 years, 5 years dating 10, married all in the glittering chaos of New York City. James was my world, a man with a crooked smile and a knack for charming his way through life. But there was always Sarah, his so-called childhood friend, a shadow who clung to him like damp fog over the Hudson River. Orphaned young James saw her as a sister, or so he swore, his hazel eyes pleading for my understanding. She's got no one. Emma, he'd say, voice soft but firm, as if my heart should bend to his charity. And bend it did over and over until it broke. Sarah was a constant in our lives, a third wheel never leaving the frame. When James's tech startup needed a boost, I used my family's real estate empire, Larson Properties, to secure him a cushy office lease in Midtown. When he wanted to impress clients, I pulled strings for penthouse venues. Sarah. She got a job as his assistant, a sleek condo in Brooklyn paid for by his bonuses and gifts, always a sapphire necklace for her birthday, a cashmere scarf from his business trips to London. Even on our anniversaries, when we dined at rooftop restaurants with Manhattan's skyline sparkling below, Sarah was there toasting with us, her laughter a little too bright. I'd grit my teeth swallowing objections because James had a way of twisting my doubts into guilt. He'd say, "You're a woman, Emma, you should get how tough it is for her all alone in this world." I'd nod, ashamed of my jealousy, convinced I was the selfish one. Our friends saw through it. Mia, my best friend since our NYU days, would roll her eyes at Sarah's delicate sighs, muttering, "She's playing him, Emma, and you're letting her." But I loved James too much to listen and see the cracks in his loyalty. For 15 years, I built a life around him, decorating our Upper East Side apartment with photos of us smiling at the Hamptons, kissing under Central Park's cherry blossoms while Sarah's presence lingered like an uninvited guest. I told myself it was compassion, not betrayal, when he bought her a diamond bracelet the same week he gave me a handmade card for our 10th anniversary. "It's from the heart," he'd said, and I'd believed him, fool that I was. Then came the day that shattered everything. It was a muggy summer night where New York's air felt like a wet towel. Sarah and I were kidnapped, snatched from a charity gala at the Met by masked men who smelled of cheap whiskey and desperation. They tied us up in a grimy warehouse, their voices barking through ski masks. "Choose one, Carter, or they both die." My heart pounded, confident James would save me, his wife, his partner of 15 years. But Sarah, trembling, her mascara-streaked face pale, sobbed, "James, I'm pregnant with your child." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Pregnant, his child. All those years, she's like a sister dissolved into a lie, and I saw the truth in his eyes, calm, cruel, and utterly confident. "Lena, you grew up with everything," James said, his voice steady as he untied Sarah. "You had parents, wealth, and me. Your life's been full. Sarah only has me, and now our baby." He didn't look back as he carried her away, her arms wrapped around his neck, my screams echoing in the empty warehouse. The kidnappers laughed, their boots heavy as they closed in. I died that night, humiliated, betrayed, my heart torn apart by the man I'd given everything to. But as my soul slipped away, a cosmic force stirred a pulse of light, a whisper of fate sensing my unresolved pain. It wasn't justice, not yet, but a second chance. I woke up reborn on the morning of the day James was to propose. My memories were intact and my heart hardened. This time I'd rewrite my story. Now as I stand at the edge of this new life, I'm not alone. You watching this are part of my journey. If you're as furious as I am about James's betrayal, hit that like button to send a signal to the universe. Let's make sure cheaters like him get what's coming. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted? And subscribe to join me as I take back my power step by step in this city that never sleeps. Let's make this rebirth count. The morning of my rebirth, the Manhattan air buzzed with summer heat, the kind that makes your skin stick to your clothes. I stood on a manicured lawn in Central Park, heart-shaped rose petals scattered at my feet, the city's skyline glinting in the distance. This was the day James Carter was supposed to propose to me, Emma Larson, after 5 years of dating. In my past life, he'd knelt here, ring in hand, promising forever while our friends cheered. But now, reborn with every bitter memory of his betrayal, I knew what was coming. My pulse raced, not with hope, but with a cold, sharp clarity. James stood at the center of the lawn, his tailored suit catching the sunlight, his hazel eyes fixed not on me, but on Sarah. She wore a white sundress, her auburn hair cascading in perfect waves, playing the part of the innocent. The crowd, our mutual friends, colleagues from Larson Properties, even a few of James's startup buddies, murmured in confusion. Mia, my best friend, clutched my arm, her dark curls bouncing as she whispered, "What the hell is he doing, Emma?" I didn't answer. My gaze locked on James as he dropped to one knee, not for me, but for her. He said, voice thick with emotion, "Sarah, I've always loved you. You're my true home, my everything. Will you marry me?" He slid a diamond ring onto her finger, a ring I recognized instantly. It was mine-sized for my hand, now loose on Sarah's slender one. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah covered her mouth, tears spilling, nodding frantically. "Yes, James, yes." They kissed, a passionate, showy embrace, a string of saliva glinting as they pulled apart. The crowd's murmurs turned to whispers, then shouts. Mia's voice cut through Emma. "That's your ring. He told us last week he was proposing to you." Another friend, Tom, a broker at Larson Properties, chimed in. "Didn't he always call Sarah his sister? When did this happen?" The questions piled up, each one a dagger to James's facade. In my past life, this moment had broken me. The public humiliation, a prelude to the kidnapping. But now, reborn just hours ago, I felt the weight of my past life memories, 15 years of loyalty. Sarah's lies, James's cold choice in that warehouse. And something else. James had been reborn too. His eyes flickering toward me held a knowing glint, as if he remembered choosing Sarah and wanted to do it again harder. He turned to me, his voice ice cold but rehearsed like a man playing a part. "Emma, let's be clear. I'm breaking up with you. I love Sarah and I'm marrying her. Let's part ways peacefully, okay?" His tone carried a warning, his hand gripping Sarah's tightly as if I'd cling to him. The old Emma might have, but not this one. I met his gaze, my voice steady as the skyscrapers around us. "Fine, James. We're done. No tears, no pleas, just a nod and a step back." His jaw twitched, expecting a fight, but I gave him nothing. The crowd erupted. Mia, her brown eyes blazing, shouted, "You're a scumbag, James," proposing with Emma's ring. "Low even for you," Tom added. 5 years with Emma, and you pull this. What's wrong with you?" A tech friend of James's, clearly uncomfortable, muttered, "Man, you said she was just a friend last month." The gossip swirled, a storm of betrayal and disbelief. Sarah clung to James, her tears a performance, while he stood taller, basking in the chaos he'd created. I turned away, disgust curling in my chest, not at my pain, but at their audacity. Mia slung an arm around me as we left the park, the city's hum swallowing the crowd's chatter. "You okay, Em?" she asked, her voice soft but fierce. I smiled, surprising myself. "Better than okay. I'm free." In my past life, I'd clung to James, ignoring how he'd used my family's real estate connections, Larson Properties, leases, client introductions, loan guarantees to build his startup. Sarah had been there, leeching off his kindness, her delicate act masking a calculated betrayal. Now I saw them for what they were, a liar and a user playing roles they thought were clever. I'd walk away this time, not to mourn, but to reclaim my life. As we headed toward a Soho bistro to celebrate, the weight of my rebirth settled in. The cosmic force that brought me back, fate fury, gave me a chance to right every wrong. James thought he could rewrite our story to make me the fool again, but he didn't know I remembered everything, the warehouse, Sarah's pregnancy lie, and his cruel choice. I'd use that knowledge not to beg, but to build something better. The city stretched before me, alive with possibility, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt unstoppable. The neon glow of Soho's streets buzzed around us as I stepped into the Velvet Fork, a trendy bistro where the air smelled of truffle fries and ambition. My best friend Mia led the way, her dark curls bouncing with every determined stride, while our friends Tom and Lila trailed behind, still buzzing from the Central Park fiasco. Just hours ago, I, Emma Larson, had been reborn, my memories of a past life, 15 years of loving James Carter, only to be betrayed by his childhood friend Sarah, burning like a fresh wound. But now, as I slid into a leather booth, the weight of James's public proposal to Sarah felt like a chain I'd finally broken. Mia raised a glass of Pinot Noir, her brown eyes glinting defiantly. To Emma, free from that lying scumbag, at last she toasted, and the table erupted in cheers. Tom, a broker at my family's real estate empire, Larson Properties, leaned forward, his tie loose from the day's drama. "Seriously, Em, how did you stay so calm when James pulled that stunt with your ring?" Lila, a graphic designer who'd known us since NYU, shook her head. "I'd have thrown that ring into the Hudson. What a snake." Their support wrapped around me like a warm blanket, thawing the chill of my past life mistakes. I sipped my wine, the tartness grounding me. "I was an idiot back then," I admitted, my voice steady but laced with regret. In my past life, James had used my family's influence to build his tech startup Carter Tech. Larson Properties secured office leases in Midtown, introduced him to Wall Street investors, and even co-signed loans when his credit was shaky. I thought it was love helping him chase his dreams while he called Sarah his sister. She was always there sipping champagne at our anniversaries, tagging along to the Hamptons, wearing jewelry he claimed was to cheer her up. I'd ignored the red flags even when Mia warned me. He's too cozy with her, Em, she'd said years ago, her voice sharp over coffee at a Flatiron cafe. But I'd brushed it off, guilted by James's sob stories about Sarah's lonely childhood in foster care. Now my friends' voices pulled me back. Tom said he leaned on your connections like a crutch slicing into his steak. Carter Tech only got those big contracts because of Larson Properties. Without your dad's name, he'd still be coding in his mom's basement. Lila snorted, twirling her fork. And Sarah, that poor me act, total manipulation. I saw her flirting with him at your last birthday party, Em. You were too nice to notice. Their words stung, but they were right. In my past life, I'd been blind, convincing myself James was kind, responsible, a man who just cared too much. But kindness doesn't buy your sister a Brooklyn condo while your girlfriend gets paper flowers for Valentine's Day. Mia slung an arm around my shoulder, her perfume sharp and citrusy. You're free now, Em. No more playing second fiddle to that leech and his sidekick. I laughed, surprising myself with how light it felt seeing his true colors early. That's worth celebrating. The table raised their glasses again, and I felt unburdened for the first time in 2 lifetimes. Larson Properties. My family's legacy wasn't just a business, it was my strength. My parents had built it from a single brownstone to a real estate giant managing skyscrapers and luxury condos across New York. James had ridden that wave, but I'd been too in love to see how he'd used me. Not anymore. As we dug into dessert chocolate lava cake that oozed decadence, I thought about the cosmic force that brought me back. It wasn't just chance, it was a reckoning, a chance to right the wrongs of a life where I'd given everything to a man who left me to die. The kidnapping flashed in my mind, Sarah's fake tears, James's cold choice, the warehouse's damp air. But tonight, surrounded by friends who saw me clearly, I knew I was done being the fool. To new beginnings I toasted, and their cheers echoed a promise that this life would be mine to shape. The Velvet Fork's dim lights cast long shadows as our laughter filled the booth, the clink of glasses punctuating our freedom toast. I, Emma Larson, was savoring the moment, my rebirth still fresh, the sting of James Carter's Central Park betrayal fading with every sip of wine. Mia was mid-story recounting a client's ridiculous penthouse demands when the bistro's door swung open with a gust of humid New York air. James strode in, Sarah clinging to his arm, her auburn hair catching the light like a practiced spotlight. The room seemed to pause, forks hovering as their eyes locked on me. Emma, Sarah said, her voice soft but dripping with calculation, holding a glass of Merlot like a prop. I've loved James for years. I wanted to wish you well, but he loves me too. Please bless us. Her eyes glistened, a tear poised to fall. But I saw through it now, the same act she'd used to worm into our lives in my past life. In that life, I'd pitied her, treated her like a sister, even when she curled up in James's arms in that warehouse, sneering as I died. Now her delicate facade was as transparent as the glass in her hand. James stepped forward, his tailored blazer creased, his hazel eyes cold. Stop clinging, Emma. I told you in the park we're done. Let's move on. His tone was a blade slicing through the bistro's hum, and heads turned. Mia's jaw tightened, her fork clattering. You've got some nerve, Carter, she snapped, but James ignored her, his gaze fixed on me, daring me to break. I might have been crying, begging for answers in my past life. But reborn with 15 years of betrayal etched in my memory, I felt only disgust. I said, you're the one making a scene, James. My voice calm but sharp like a midtown skyscraper's edge. I agreed to the breakup. Why are you here? His jaw twitched, unprepared for my composure. Sarah's lip quivered, her act faltering, and then James, in a clumsy lunge to grab a chair, knocked a glass of red wine across the table. It splashed over my cream silk dress, a cold shock against my skin. The bistro went silent, all eyes on us. I said, you did that on purpose, standing my voice low but steady. James smirked, leaning closer. You should have stayed out of my way, Emma. You're just mad I chose Sarah. That was the same arrogance that left me to die in that warehouse, the same man who'd used Larson Properties' clout to build Carter Tech while giving me paper roses. I raised my hand and slapped him, the crack echoing like a thunderclap. I said, you don't get to bark like a dog here, my eyes burning into his. I was eating dinner. James's hand flew to his cheek, eyes wide with shock. Sarah gasped, her wine glass trembling, but Mia was on her feet, arms crossed. Which part of Emma sitting here was bullying Sarah? Crying doesn't make you right. Tom joined in, his broker's calm replaced with heat. You show up, spill wine, and accuse her classy Carter. Lila, usually quiet, added, You always said Sarah was your sister James. Guess that was a lie, too. The crowd murmured, phones discreetly recording the bistro a stage for their downfall. Sarah leaned into James, her voice a trembling whisper. It's my fault, James. She's upset because you chose me. She was good Oscar-worthy even, but I remembered her sneer in that past life warehouse mocking my lucky life as she claimed James. If you don't need your eyes, donate them, I said coldly, wiping wine from my dress. I haven't said a word to you, Sarah. The crowd tittered, a few clapping. James's face darkened, his hand twitching as if to strike back, but he froze, caught in the spotlight of his own making. Mia grabbed my arm, her voice low. Let's get out of here, Em. They're not worth it. I nodded, tossing my napkin on the table. As we headed for the door, I glanced back at James and Sarah, their faces mixed with fury and embarrassment. In my past life, I'd been too gentle, preserving James's pride because his family was working class, his startup, a dream I'd bankrolled with Larson Properties, connections, leases for his offices, introductions to investors, even a loan guarantee for his first big contract. Now I saw the truth. He'd mistaken my support for his own brilliance, and Sarah had played on his ego to leech off us both. Outside, the Soho night pulsed with taxis and laughter, the city alive with possibility. Mia said you were a badass back there, grinning, no more nice Emma. I smiled, the weight of my rebirth settling like armor. James thought he could rewrite our story, but I remembered everything, his betrayal, Sarah's lies, the cosmic force that gave me this chance. I wasn't here to cry. I was here to win. The Velvet Fork's air crackled with tension, the hum of New York's nightlife barely audible over the stunned silence that followed my slap across James Carter's face. His cheek reddened, his hazel eyes wide with disbelief as Sarah's fake tears glistened beside him. I, Emma Larson, stood firm, my cream silk dress stained with wine, my heart pounding not with fear, but with the fire of my rebirth. James's voice rose sharp and accusing. You dare hit me, Emma. You're just bitter. I chose Sarah. His hand twitched, rising as if to strike back, and for a moment I braced for the blow I'd never dared imagine in my past life, where I'd tiptoed around his pride. Before his hand could move, a firm grip seized his wrist, twisting it aside with controlled force. Shawn Hayes stepped between us, his tall frame a shield, his dark blazer catching the bistro's dim light. You okay, Emma? He asked, his voice low, his blue eyes scanning me with concern. The wine-soaked fabric clung to my skin, but his gaze made the mess feel irrelevant. Shawn's presence was steady like the steel of Manhattan's skyscrapers, and for the first time that night I felt safe. James yanked his arm free, sneering. What's this Emma bringing some guy to make me jealous, pathetic? His words dripped with the same arrogance that had left me to die in that past life warehouse, choosing Sarah's lies over me. I rolled my eyes, my voice cutting through the crowd's murmurs. Get help, James. Your ego's writing checks your brain can't cash. My best friend Mia snorted from the booth, her dark curls bouncing as she crossed her arms. Jealous. She's way past you, Carter. Tom, our broker friend, added. Yeah, man, read the room. The bistro's patrons watched some filming, their whispers a chorus of judgment. Shawn didn't flinch, his hand still hovering protectively near me. He draped his blazer over my shoulders, the wool warm against the chill of the wine. He said softly, Let's get you cleaned up, ignoring James's glare. Sarah clung to James's arm, her voice trembling for effect. She's just upset, James. Let's go. But her eyes darted to me, calculating the same look she'd given me in that warehouse when she'd sneered at my lucky life. I saw her now manipulator, not victim. As we moved toward the restroom, Shawn's quiet strength stirred a memory from our high school days in Westchester. We'd been debate partners, spending late nights in the school library arguing over policy and ethics, our laughter echoing past curfew. I dream of expanding Larson Properties, my family's real estate empire, while Shawn, with his sharp mind and quiet ambition, sketched plans for a clean energy startup. He'd always listened, his blue eyes bright with admiration, but I'd been too caught up in James's charm to notice. You always saw the bigger picture, Emma, he'd said once, over diner milkshakes, his smile shy. I'd brushed it off then, but now his concern felt like an anchor in the storm of my rebirth. Back at the booth, Mia handed me a damp napkin, her voice fierce. You were a queen out there, Em. No more playing nice with that jerk. I nodded, wiping the wine from my dress. The fabric was ruined, but my spirit was intact. James's accusation jealousy a show echoed his past life delusion when he'd justified abandoning me by claiming Sarah needed him more. But Shawn's intervention was different. In my past life, after my death, my soul had lingered watching him uncover James's betrayal. He'd tanked Carter Tech with strategic lawsuits, exposed the kidnappers, and ensured their convictions, all while visiting my grave each year, his love unspoken. Now his presence hinted at a future I hadn't dared imagine. James and Sarah slunk out of the bistro, the crowd's whispers trailing them. He used her family's clout for years, a patron muttered, and another added, that ring was hers. I sat back down, Shawn beside me, his hand brushing mine. You didn't deserve that, he said, his voice barely above the jazz playing overhead. I met his gaze, my heart stirring. Thanks, Shawn. I'm done letting him define me. The cosmic force that brought me back, fueled by the pain of that warehouse betrayal, had given me clarity. James thought he could rewrite our story, but I was rewriting mine, and Shawn's quiet strength was a spark I couldn't ignore. The next morning, the sun cut through my Upper East Side apartment's windows, glinting off the Hudson River in the distance. I, Emma Larson, stood at a crossroads, my rebirth still fresh, the sting of James Carter's betrayal at the Velvet Fork fueling my resolve. My parents, founders of Larson Properties, had called last night furious after seeing James's viral proposal video online. We warned you about Sarah, Dad growled, his voice crackling through the phone. That boy's a leech, Mom added. You're better than him, Emma. Always were. Their words echoed as I drove downtown to my luxury condo, the one James had lived in rent-free for years, a real estate agent and cleaning crew in tow. Today, I'd cut the last tie to him. The condo, a sleek loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Soho, was mine, bought with Larson Properties profits when I'd joined the family business after NYU. James had moved in when Carter Tech was just a dream, claiming the location was perfect for his commute. I'd agreed, preserving his pride, never mentioning the $2 million price tag. As I unlocked the door, the scent of burnt toast hit me. James stood in the kitchen chopping vegetables while Sarah lounged on my leather couch scrolling through her phone. They froze, her auburn hair catching the light, his hazel eyes narrowing. Emma. What the hell? James snapped, slamming his knife down. You can't just walk in without knocking. I laughed, the sound sharp in the open space. My condo, James. Why would I knock? His face shifted, a flicker of guilt beneath his bravado. The realtor, a crisp woman named Carla, stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Ms. Larson wants to sell. I'll need photos. James blocked her path, his voice rising. This is my home. Sarah stood, her delicate act back, but her eyes were wary. I ignored them, striding to the bedroom, my heart pounding with the weight of my past life. James's betrayal, Sarah's sneer as I died in that warehouse. Inside, I froze. My belongings, photos, books, my grandmother's quilt, were piled in a corner like trash, some torn, others stained. My favorite mugs sat in the kitchen garbage, replaced by cheap glassware. Fury surged, my hands trembling. You trashed my home, I said, turning to James, who shrugged. It's just stuff, Emma. I'm a CEO now. I can buy a place like this. Sarah nodded, her voice soft. He's doing well, Emma. Don't be petty. But her gaze lingered on a display case of watches, Rolex, Patek Philippe, each worth tens of thousands, all gifts I'd bought when James was broke. I turned to the cleaners, 5 women in crisp uniforms. Everything he owns, suits, watches, anything, take it. It's yours. Their eyes lit up and they moved to the wardrobe, pulling out designer jackets and ties, all purchased with my money. James's face reddened. You can't do that, I smirked, kicking a small suitcase toward him. What about the gifts you gave me, James, planning to take those too? He opened the case, revealing wire rings and paper roses, cheap trinkets from our anniversaries when he'd claimed they were from the heart. The cleaners snorted, one muttering, This junk's not worth a dime. Sarah bit her lip, eyeing a $100,000 watch as a cleaner pocketed it. Once you give something, Emma, it's gone. Taking it back isn't very comfortable. I scoffed. Embarrassing. You're wearing my life, Sarah. James stepped forward, his voice cold. I gave you my love, Emma. That's worth more than money. I laughed, the sound bitter. Your love. You gave me scraps while buying her diamonds. I pointed to Sarah's necklace, a Tiffany piece I'd seen on his credit card statement charged when he'd claimed to be broke. Carla, the realtor, interrupted, her tone professional. Unless you've got something to hide, Mr. Carter, let's finish the tour. James coughed awkwardly as Sarah's gaze turned suspicious. "This isn't yours, James," she asked. He puffed up. "I can afford it now, Sarah. Don't worry." But his voice wavered. Carter Tech's success office leases, investor meetings, loan approvals had come from Larson Properties' clout. Without me, he was just a guy with a laptop and a dream. I headed to the garage where my Porsche sat, the one James drove like it was his. "Oh, that," I said, catching his hopeful glance. "Sold it yesterday." His jaw dropped. "You sold my car." I leaned closer, my voice ice. "My car, James. You drove it, but it was never yours." His stunned silence confirmed what I'd suspected. He'd started believing my world was his. Sarah's face paled, her brows knitting, as if realizing her CEO was a fraud. As the cleaners carted off James's belongings, I felt the cosmic force of my rebirth pulse through me. I'd let him use me in my past life, building his empire while he betrayed me with Sarah. Now I was reclaiming my space, my power, my life. "Get out," I said, my voice steady. "And take your trash with you." James grabbed the suitcase of trinkets, Sarah trailing him, and they left the door slamming behind them. I stood in my condo, the city skyline glittering outside, and felt unstoppable. The elevator to my parents' Upper East Side penthouse hummed softly, the Manhattan skyline glittering through its glass walls, as Emma Larson wrote up the events of the Soho Bistro still pulsing in my veins. My slap across James Carter's face had felt like a declaration, my rebirth, a fire that burned away years of naivety. But it was Shawn Hayes' protective hand, his quiet strength shielding me from James's rage that lingered in my mind. The doors slid open, and the scent of Mom's lavender candles greeted me, grounding me in the familiar warmth of home. Dad stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his silver hair catching the city's glow, his face thunderous as he waved his phone. "That viral video of James proposing to Sarah disgraceful," he growled, his voice honed from decades running. "Larson Properties, our family's real estate empire. We warned you, Emma. That boy was always a user." Mom, arranging a tray of chamomile tea on the marble coffee table, nodded, her eyes soft but fierce. "You're our daughter, brilliant and intense. You deserve better than a man who'd flaunt that harpy in Central Park." Their words stung, echoing the warnings I'd ignored in my past life when I'd let James leech off our family's clout, securing him office leases in Tribeca, introductions to hedge fund moguls, loan guarantees for his startup Carter Tech. I sank into the plush sofa, my wine-stained dress swapped for jeans and a sweater, the weight of my rebirth settling like armor. "I see it now," I said, my voice steady. "James used me, and Sarah played the victim to get what she wanted." Dad's brow softened, but his tone stayed firm. "Larson Properties gave him everything, contracts and credibility. Without us, he's nothing." Mom sat beside me, her hand warm on mine. "The Hayes family called today. They're still interested in a marriage alliance. Shawn's a good man, Emma smart, driven, loyal. What do you think, Shawn Hayes?" His name conjured his tall frame, blue eyes warm with concern as he draped his blazer over me last night. In my past life, my soul had lingered after I died in that warehouse where James chose Sarah's lies over me, leaving me to die humiliated. I'd watched formless as Shawn uncovered the truth. He'd been our high school debate partner in Westchester, always the quiet one, sketching clean energy prototypes while I ranted about real estate monopolies. We'd bonded over late-night study sessions, his shy smiles hinting at something more profound, but I'd been too smitten with James to notice. After my death, Shawn dismantled Carter Tech with lawsuits exposing James's shady deals and ensured the kidnappers faced life sentences. Every year he'd visited my grave, confessing a love he'd held for a decade, his voice breaking in the rain. The memory tightened my chest, a mix of gratitude and guilt. "Shawn," I said, testing the name, my heart stirring. "He's different." Dad raised an eyebrow, his broker's instincts sharp. "The Hayes family's clean energy firm rivals ours in scale. Shawn's their CEO, disciplined, no scandals. A rare catch." Mom squeezed my hand. "He's not just business, Emma. He's kind and doesn't play games with women. If you married him, you'd be safe, loved." In my past life, Shawn had asked me, haggard and hesitant, if I'd consider marrying him days before my wedding to James. I'd laughed it off, blind to his heart. Now reborn, I saw him clearly. The penthouse door buzzed and Shawn stepped in, his dark coat dusted with city mist, his presence filling the room. "Emma," he said, his voice cautious, his eyes searching mine. "Your parents mentioned the alliance. If I said I wanted to marry you, would you be willing?" His words echoed that past life moment, but my heart raced for him this time. I stood stepping closer, the city's lights framing us. Yes, Shawn. I said, my voice firm, not for business, but for us. I want to try this for real. His eyes lit up a smile, breaking through his restraint, and I hugged him, feeling his heartbeat against mine. Mom clapped her eyes misty, while Dad nodded satisfied. You're choosing your future, Emma, he said. Not some leech like James. The cosmic force that brought me back, fueled by the pain of that warehouse betrayal, had led me here to a man who'd loved me across lifetimes. As Shawn's arms tightened around me, I felt the stirrings of something new, not just revenge, but a chance to build something true. The glass walls of my office at Larson Properties' Midtown headquarters framed a restless New York skyline, the autumn clouds heavy with rain. I, Emma Larson, sat at my desk reviewing contracts for a new Brooklyn high-rise. My rebirth was 2 months past, but the fire was still burning. The Soho Bistro confrontation, my slap across James Carter's face, Shawn Hayes' protective hand had solidified my resolve. I'd evicted James from my condo, donated his luxury gifts, sold his car, and agreed to marry Shawn not just for alliance but for the spark I felt in his presence. My phone buzzed with texts from Mia, my best friend, updating me on her new consulting firm, a venture I'd backed with Larson Properties resources. The world was moving forward, and I was its driver. The door burst open, no knock, and James stormed in. His tailored suit rumpled, his hazel eyes bloodshot. "You're destroying me, Emma," he shouted, his voice echoing off the glass. "You're sabotaging Carter Tech." His face was haggard, a shadow of the confident CEO who'd proposed to Sarah in Central Park. Unfazed, I leaned back in my chair, my navy blazer crisp against the leather. "Good to see you too, James," I said, my tone dry. "Care to explain, or is yelling your new business strategy?" He slammed his hands on my desk, papers scattering. "Don't play innocent. You pressured my suppliers to drop me, got banks to deny my loans, and tanked my bids. You're trying to bankrupt me because I dumped you." His accusation was a tired echo of his bistro rant, but it carried a new desperation. I'd have crumbled in my past life, pleading to fix things. Now, reborn with memories of his warehouse betrayal, choosing Sarah's lies, leaving me to die, I felt only pity and disdain. I stood meeting his gaze, my voice cold as the city wind. "You think too highly of yourself, James. I haven't touched your company. You did this." He scoffed, but I pressed on, gesturing to the skyline. "Carter Tech thrived because of Larson Properties. Those suppliers, they signed with you because we vouched for you. The loans, our name got you approved. Those bids, our network opened the doors." I stepped closer, my heels clicking on the hardwood. "You mistook my platform for your talent. Now that I'm gone, so is your clout." His jaw tightened, the truth sinking in. Larson Properties had been his backbone, securing office leases in Tribeca, connecting him with Wall Street investors, and guaranteeing loans when his startup was a gamble. After his viral proposal to Sarah, the business world saw me align with Shawn Hayes, whose clean energy firm was a titan in its own right. No one wanted to risk offending the Larsons or Hayeses by backing James. His bids failed because Carter Tech lacked the scale to compete. Banks pulled loans because his financials were a house of cards. "You're lying," he snapped, but his voice wavered, his confidence cracking. I crossed my arms, my tone sharp. "You leaned on my family for years, James. Without us, you're just a guy with a laptop and an ego. Suppliers don't trust you, banks don't fund you, and your company's too weak to survive. That's not sabotage, that's reality." His face flushed, shame creeping in, but he tried one last play. He said, "Give me a project, Emma." His voice low, almost pleading, one collaboration with Larson Properties. "I'll prove myself." I laughed, the sound cold and final. "I'm a professional, James. We partner with winners, not has-beens. Your company's not competitive, never was without us." I pointed to the door. "If there's nothing else, I have work to do." His mouth opened, words stuck his face, a mix of rage and humiliation. He'd built his empire on my resources, convincing himself it was his brilliance. Now the world saw him for what he was, a small man with prominent delusions. As he shuffled out head low, I turned to my contracts, the Brooklyn skyline, a reminder of my power. Mia's text pinged, "Heard James is begging for deals." Pathetic. I smiled, the cosmic force of my rebirth humming within me. I'd let James use me in my past life, blind to his betrayal of Sarah. Now I was free, building a future with Shawn, whose quiet love had waited across lifetimes. James's collapse wasn't my doing, it was his. And as I signed the next contract, I felt the city's pulse align with mine, unstoppable. The chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like stars, casting a golden glow over New York's elite Wall Street tycoons, real estate moguls, and tech innovators mingling with the clink of champagne flutes. Emma Larson glided through the crowd on Shawn Hayes' arm, my emerald gown shimmering, my heart steady with the fire of my rebirth. 2 months had passed since I'd evicted James Carter from my condo and dismissed his desperate pleas at Larson Properties. My engagement to Shawn, sealed with a heartfelt hug at my parents' penthouse, had blossomed into quiet moments, coffee dates in Greenwich Village, late-night talks about our dreams. Tonight, at this gala for industry titan Victor Grayson's birthday, we were a power couple representing Larson Properties and Hayes Energy, our family's empires aligned. Shawn's hand rested lightly on my waist, his blue eyes catching mine as we navigated the crowd. "You look stunning, Emma," he murmured, his voice warm against the hum of laughter and jazz. I smiled, rising on my toes to kiss his cheek. "My fiancé's not bad himself," I teased, his tailored tuxedo accentuating his broad shoulders. In my past life, Shawn's unspoken love had anchored me after death, his revenge against James' lawsuits that tanked Carter Tech convictions for my kidnappers, a silent vow I'd only understood as a wandering soul. Now his touch felt like a promise of a future I'd never dared imagine. A commotion near the dessert table shattered the moment. Sarah's voice, sharp and theatrical, cut through the air. "Are you blind? Do you know how much this dress costs?" She towered over a boy in dinosaur pajamas no older than 8, his face defiant as he clutched a spilled glass of red wine. Her white gown, $500,000, she screeched, was splattered with crimson. James, his suit creased and tie askew, loomed beside her, his hazel eyes flashing. "Where are your parents, kid? This dress is 50 grand. Pay up!" The crowd parted, whispers rippling. I raised an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with Shawn, who shook his head, his jaw tight. The boy, unfazed, kicked James's shin. "You're blind, jerk! Your whole family's blind!" Sarah, furious, shoved the child, her voice shrill. "No manners. What kind of wild kid crashes a gala in pajamas?" James grabbed the boy's arm, snarling, "Where's security? They let anyone in here." The crowd gasped, phones discreetly filming. Mia, my best friend, appeared beside me, her black dress sleek, her eyes blazing. She muttered that they were digging their grave, and her new consulting firm's success gave her a front-row seat in this elite circle. A deep voice boomed across the ballroom. "Who dares yell at my grandson, Victor Grayson?" The host strode forward, his silver hair and commanding presence silencing the room. His eyes locked on the boy, softening, then turned to James and Sarah, cold as steel. "You think you can bully my family?" The crowd murmured, recognition dawning. The boy, Grayson's beloved grandson, had wandered downstairs from his suite, woken by the gala's noise, and accidentally bumped into Sarah's wine glass. Whispers erupted. "That's James Carter, the guy who ditched Emma Larson for that woman," a banker said, nodding toward me. "She proposed with her ring in Central Park," and another added. "What a downgrade." Mia leaned closer, her voice low. "James pulled every string to get an invite." Now this, I watched, my heart calm but satisfied as James's face paled. Sarah's tears surfaced, her delicate act faltering. "We didn't know," she stammered, but Grayson waved a hand, signaling security. "Get them out," he ordered, handing the boy a napkin. A guard presented a $50,000 check for the dress, but his expression was ice. James groveled, his voice cracking. "Mr. Grayson, please give us a chance." Sarah clung to him, her mascara streaking, but the crowd's judgment was merciless. Security escorted them out, the boy now safe with his grandfather, who ruffled his hair. Shawn's arm tightened around me, shielding me from the spectacle. "Don't look at them," he said, his voice soft but possessive. I leaned into him, teasing, "Just people watching like everyone else." "My fiancé's the only one I see." His ears reddened, a shy smile breaking through, and the crowd's admiring glances cemented us as the night's true power couple. As we moved toward the terrace, the city's skyline sparkling below, I felt the cosmic force of my rebirth pulse. In my past life, James's betrayal, choosing Sarah in that warehouse, had broken me. His public humiliation was justice, not revenge, a consequence of his arrogance. With Shawn by my side, I was no longer the fool who'd loved James. I was Emma Larson, unstoppable, my future bright as the lights of Manhattan. The aroma of espresso filled the cozy Greenwich Village cafe, where I, Emma Larson, sat sketching wedding plans on a napkin, lilies or roses for the Hudson River venue, Shawn's favorite blue for the table settings. 3 months into my rebirth, my life was blooming. My engagement to Shawn Hayes, sparked by his past life loyalty and our growing bond, felt like a melody I was finally learning to sing. Larson. Properties, my family's real estate empire, hummed under my leadership with new contracts for Brooklyn high-rises keeping me busy. Mia's texts lit up my phone, her consulting firm thriving with my backing, her latest message, teasing Shawn's got you glowing him. I smiled the cosmic force that brought me back a reckoning for James Carter's betrayal guiding me toward a future I'd chosen. The cafe door chimed and Sarah strode in, her auburn hair pulled tight, her delicate facade gone. No tears, no trembling, just a cold, calculated gaze as she sat across from me, rubbing her belly. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice flat like a business pitch. I raised an eyebrow, setting down my pen. "Not mine. Why tell me?" She leaned forward, her smile sharp. "I know you still love James. 5 years isn't easy to forget. Give me 10 million, Emma. I'll get an abortion and leave him forever. You'll never see me again." Her words hit like a slap, but I stayed calm, my rebirth's clarity sharpening my senses. In my past life, Sarah's helpless act had fooled me, her sobs in that warehouse, claiming James's child, sealing my death. Now I saw the truth. "You're his childhood sweetheart, aren't you?" I said, my tone dry. "Don't you love him?" She scoffed, her eyes glinting with disdain. "Love. I grew up with James in a Brooklyn foster home. He was always arrogant, chasing rich girls to feel big. I played the weak damsel because it worked on him on you. I stayed for the perks, waiting for him to marry you, get rich, and give me a cut. But he proposed to me instead, and now his company's bust. He's useless." Her words peeled back her origins, a foster kid who'd learned to manipulate to survive, latching onto James's ego for security. She'd played me for years, accepting my kindness invites to our Hamptons trips, my sympathy for her lonely life, while scheming behind me. "So 10 million and you're gone?" I asked, my voice steady, my phone discreetly recording. She nodded, smug. "Exactly. He's all yours." I leaned back, crossing my arms. Why would I want him? He's a cheating scumbag. I've got men 100 times better, like with my family's name, Shawn. Her expression froze, her plan unraveling. "Don't come near me again," I said, standing. "I'm done with both of you." She left, her heels clicking, but I wasn't done. Later that day, James burst into my office at Larson Properties, his face pale, his suit wrinkled. "You bullied Sarah," he shouted, pointing a trembling finger. "You pushed her so hard she lost the baby." I laughed coldly. My past life memories, his choice in that warehouse. Sarah's sneer fueling my resolve. "Lost it or got rid of it," I said, pulling out my phone. "Listen to your sweetheart." I played the recording, Sarah's voice clear. "James is useless. 10 million, and I'll leave him forever." His face drained of color, his fists clenching as her words sank in. "I stayed for the perks. He's arrogant and chases rich girls." James froze, the betrayal cutting deeper than he'd expected. "She lied to me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She played me." I leaned forward, my voice ice. "You played yourself, James. You dumped me, used my family's clout, and thought you were the star. Now look at you." He stormed out his steps, heavy, heading to confront Sarah. I later heard from Mia, who'd caught wind through industry gossip, that James found Sarah packing his last valuables, jewelry he'd bought with my money. She dropped her gentle act, mocking him. "You thought you were a big shot, but you're nothing without Emma." Their fight turned ugly, Sarah calling the police, fleeing with his Rolexes. James was left alone, his illusions shattered. I returned to my wedding plans, sketching Shawn's smile, the city's pulse aligning with mine. The cosmic force of my rebirth had led me here, not to revenge, but to truth, to a life with a man who'd loved me across lifetimes. The autumn rain streaked the windows of my office at Larson Properties' Midtown headquarters, the New York skyline a blur of steel and ambition. I, Emma Larson, sat reviewing plans for a new Hudson Yards project. My rebirth is now 4 months past, and it's fire fueling my every move. The memory of Sarah's cold demand for $10 million, her true colors exposed in that Greenwich Village cafe, had shattered James Carter's illusions, just as my slap at the Velvet Fork and his ejection from Victor Grayson's gala had shattered his social standing. My engagement to Shawn Hayes, rooted in his past life loyalty, and our growing love, was the melody of my new life. Today I sketched wedding details, blue linens for Shawn's eyes, a Hudson River venue, my heart light with purpose. Thanks to my backing, Mia's text pinged. Her consulting firm is now a rising star in Manhattan's business scene. "James is a wreck," she wrote. "Spotted drowning in whiskey at a dive bar." Carter text done. I leaned back, the city's pulse thrumming through the glass. James's downfall wasn't my doing, it was his. In my past life, I'd watched a lingering soul as Shawn dismantled Carter Tech with lawsuits exposing James's shady contracts after he'd left me to die in that warehouse choosing Sarah's lies. Now reborn, I'd seen him unravel his suppliers gone. His loans denied, his bids lost all because Larson Properties clout our leases, investor introductions, loan guarantees had propped him up. Without me, he was nothing. Industry gossip relayed by Mia's network painted a grim picture. James, once a tech darling, now haunted dive bars in Hell's Kitchen, his tailored suits swapped for wrinkled shirts, his hazel eyes hollow. After Sarah fled with his last valuables, Rolexes and diamonds he'd bought with my money, he'd confronted her, their fight ending with police at his dingy apartment. Alone, he sank into the couch, whiskey bottle in hand, replaying his mistakes. I could almost see him staring into the void, realizing that Carter Tech's success had been my family's doing. The Tribeca office lease, the Wall Street investors, and the $5 million loan for his first big contract came through Larson Properties. He'd mistaken my platform for his talent, his arrogance closing his eyes to his limits. In my past life, I'd been too soft, gifting him designer suits and watches to boost his confidence, while he gave me wire rings and paper roses, claiming they were from the heart. I'd believed him, preserving his pride blind to his affair with Sarah. He'd chased her to feel superior, to prove he didn't need me, even as he leaned on my resources. When we were kidnapped, his choice carrying Sarah away, leaving me to scream, was his ultimate betrayal, a desperate grasp at control. Now, in this life, he'd tried to prove he could succeed without me proposing to Sarah, chasing his true love. But Sarah's betrayal, her gold digging exposed by my recording, had cracked his world open. Word spread that James had been diagnosed with stomach cancer, the news filtering through Mia's industry contacts. He couldn't afford treatment, his company was bankrupt, and his investors were gone. In his apartment surrounded by empty bottles, he replayed our past, regret gnawing at him. He'd always known deep down that his success hinged on the Larson name. His cheap gifts to me were his way of asserting dominance, while he lavished Sarah with jewelry, chasing the thrill of betrayal. He saw the truth alone. I'd loved him, purely building him up while he'd torn me down. He thought of begging for forgiveness, clinging to the memory of my past softness. But I was long gone. My heart turned toward Shawn. Shawn and I had grown closer, our evenings filled with walks along the High Line, his hand warm in mine, his quiet humor a balm. In high school, we'd debated policy in Westchester libraries, his clean energy dreams complementing my real estate ambitions. After my death, he'd honored me, ruining James and ensuring justice for my kidnappers. Now his love was my anchor, our wedding plans a beacon. Mia, stopping by my office, grinned. "You and Shawn are the real deal, Em." "James. He's learning what happens when you bite the hand that fed you." I nodded, the cosmic force of my rebirth humming within me. James's collapse was his own, a shadow fading as I stepped into the light with Shawn, my future bright as the city itself. The Hudson River sparkled under a September sky, two rainbows arching over the waterfront venue where I, Emma Larson, stood in a flowing ivory gown. My hand in Shawn Hayes's, the past 5 months of my rebirth had led here to this moment where love and justice intertwined. The Plaza Hotel Gala had buried James Carter's reputation. Sarah's recorded betrayal had shattered his heart. My life, once tethered to James's lies, now bloomed with Shawn, whose past life loyalty, avenging my death, visiting my grave, had won my heart in this one. Today, under a canopy of lilies, we'd vow to build a future together, the New York skyline our witness. Guests filled the venue, their laughter mingling with the jazz quartet's melody. Radiant in sapphire, her consulting firm now a Manhattan staple. Mia winked as she adjusted my veil. "You're a vision, Em," she said, her voice thick with pride. My parents, founders of Larson Properties, beamed from the front row, Dad's silver hair catching the light, Mom's eyes misty. They'd warned me about James years ago, his reliance on our real estate empire, leases, loans, investor connections masked by his arrogance. They celebrated my choice, Shawn, CEO of Hayes Energy, whose clean energy empire matched ours, and his love has been proven across lifetimes. Shawn faced me, his blue eyes bright, his tuxedo sharp against the river's glow. "Emma," he said, his voice steady, "I promise to stand by you through every joy and storm, to build a life where you shine." My heart swelled, memories of our high school debates, late nights in Westchester, dreaming of empires merging with his past life devotion. "Shawn," I replied, my voice clear, "I choose you not just for today, but for all our tomorrows." I slid a ring onto his finger, his smile a sunrise. The officiant pronounced us married, and as we kissed, the crowd erupted petals raining down the rainbows above a cosmic nod to my rebirth. As guests mingled, sipping champagne, James appeared at the venue's edge, his suit wrinkled but clean, his face gaunt. He knelt, tears streaming, his voice a broken sob. "Emma, I was wrong. We were meant to be. Please forgive me." The crowd hushed, eyes darting between us. Shawn's arm tightened around me, possessive and fierce. "My wife doesn't recycle trash," he said, his tone steel. "Get lost, Carter." James's eyes, filled with twisted longing, met mine. "In our past life, we were husband and wife," he whispered, confirming his rebirth, his knowledge of our shared history. I stepped forward, my gown trailing my voice, cold as the warehouse where he'd left me to die. "You mean the husband who abandoned his wife to criminals, who chose Sarah's lies over me?" His face crumbled, collapsing to the grass. "You knew," he gasped, the weight of his betrayal crushing him. I turned away, Shawn's hand warm in mine, leaving James to his regret. In my past life, my soul had watched him marry Sarah, his company fall, and his cancer claim him. Now he'd face that fate again alone. Mia approached, her grin sharp. "He's done, Em. He's broke, sick, and no one is left." I nodded, the cosmic force that brought me back a reckoning for that warehouse pain, now a quiet hum of triumph. Later I heard James died in his apartment, his cancer untreated, his body found too late. Sarah, chasing rich men, was attacked by a rival's wife. Her face scarred her leg, broken, her schemes unraveling. None of it touched me anymore. A year later, Shawn and I welcomed our son Ethan, whose blue eyes mirror his father's, who was born in our Upper East Side home. Mia, now mentoring young entrepreneurs, toasted us at Ethan's christening, her laughter echoing. My parents, proud of Larson Properties' new ventures under my lead, doted on their grandson. The city stretched before us, alive with possibility, and as Shawn kissed my forehead, Ethan in my arms, I felt complete. My rebirth had been a chance to right wrongs, not with revenge, but with love, a life built with a man who'd loved me across lifetimes, our future as radiant as New York's lights.